sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues, and I'm so glad that you are patient and you decided to wait on us because we have a great show for you tonight. This is going to be a powerful conversation with an awesome individual that I met him recently, but he's a community leader. So tonight we have going to be having an in-depth conversation with Mr. Conan Harris. Mr. Conan Harris is an entrepreneur, a husband, a father, and definitely a community leader. And I wanted to have this conversation because we say on Let's Talk Money with Friends that everything encompasses money. Who you are definitely can make a huge difference in your community. So that's why I wanted him to share his experience, the good and the bad, and the challenges that he's dealt with in his life, and what he's doing right now to not only impact his family, but also the community at large. So without further ado, I would like to encourage you to tag, share, make a comment, let your friends know that we are here every Wednesday for you and to bring some, powerful conversations that you and your family can enjoy. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I wanted to give you an opportunity to briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the numerous questions I forwarded to you earlier this week, and I want to go over those for our audience.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't remember those questions because on purpose, I didn't want you to forward them to me.
I know. I remember you said that.
No, but I just want to say to your audience, my name is Conan Harris. Thank you for having me on, Gabrielle. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you and to have a conversation with the audience.
Yes. On this show, I always say money encompasses everything. And we've always been able to highlight, individuals in our community who are doing great things. And I'm passionate about people. My passion is people. And
I share that passion with you. I share that.
Yeah, and community. So when we initially had the conversation, I was like, you know what? You are definitely the type of person that I would like to highlight on this show. So why don't we start with the very first question that I have? So who is Conan Harris? And so tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Well, first of all, who I am,
yeah.
I'm a son of a single mother who raised me and who loved me throughout my years and made me believe that I was great no matter what my challenges were. I'm also a dad of a 14-year-old daughter and a husband. And I try to stay away from labels around community leader, so forth and so on. I'll let other people say that. But really, it's about a person who's been loved and has made it my life's mission to make a positive impact on the community in which I come from and be unapologetic in that push to make us better, stronger, and have an equitable stance in the community that we come from.
Yeah, definitely. I know when we talked, initially I thought you were from down south because a large number of your family, right? Relatives are still living in North Carolina, right? But
yes.
You were born and raised in Boston.
Oh, absolutely. People from different places be like, where you from, man? I'd be like, I'm from Boston. We got cool people in Boston too. And so, but my origins is my family comes from the South. My grandmother migrated here from Savannah, Georgia, and raised her family in Boston, Massachusetts, and in Cambridge. My mother was one out of 6 siblings, and she raised me in Boston, Massachusetts. I lived in Dorchester in Roxbury, but I like to claim Dorchester is my home because that's where I lived the most. And so, Boston's where I'm from. But I also understand that, the beauty of Boston is the same thing that we find challenging in Boston. We have a strong, vibrant Black and brown community here, but sometimes we don't have an equitable opportunity to be successful in the city in which we come. And that's been my fight for a long time now, to make sure that we have equal standing in the city in which we come from and where we were raised at. That we're not just coming and living here, but we have an equitable push to receive some of the opportunities that exist here.
Yeah, definitely. If you love people, you have to find ways to help them live the American dream, because unfortunately, many times marginalized communities have found themselves experiencing the American nightmare. We will
Yes.
talk a little bit more about that later
Yes.
on, but I just want to go back again to your family. I was scooping around and I saw that you have a large family. And I noticed that last year for Women's Day, and the reason I want to talk about that, because a lot of men don't think about doing things like this for women, but you went above and beyond on for Women's Month, History Month. You kept highlighting different women in your family who have impacted you over the years. Some of them were alive and others have already passed on. Can you tell me, I know you had many, but one woman who had the most impact in you, and exactly what it was? And yeah, teachers, politicians, who you name it. Yeah.
So what I did about I want to say about 3-4 years ago, every Women's History Month, what I was doing was I was highlighting women in my life and in the community at large every day of the month. I just wanted to give women their flowers. I was raised by women, and so it was so important for me to show love and give them their flowers. When I think about last year, I just highlighted women in my family because, one, I didn't have the time to do every day and think about every day. That's a full-time job and people don't realize it, because I'm not just putting their picture up. I'm also saying a few things about them. But I want to just take some moments and highlight the women in my family. It's hard to say one woman and their impact, because who I am is a person that's been connected to by many women in my life, starting with my mother, who at the beginning stages of my life, all the way up until now, has been my foundation, but also the person who's loved me to death and taught me how and raised me to be a man. And the kind of man that I like to believe I am, is a person who cares and who genuinely loves and wants to do better by everybody around in his circle, whether it be through family and community at large. But my mother's been the foundation, and then I can easily pass down my grandmother and my siblings, and that of my sisters. And more recent, in the last decade, has been my wife. And she's had a huge impact on me. And when you're married and you're deliberately married, your partner starts to have the most influence on you and with you. And so my wife, more in the past decade, has been my number one influence, and has shaped and helped me become the man I am today.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important to give honor where honor is due. And I don't know all the women in your life, but I wanted to share, because I promised I was going to share.
Oh my God.
I know your wife a little bit. For those who don't know, she is Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
Yes.
And before she became a Congresswoman, years ago, I did a presentation with her. Actually, I think I said to you that I have like a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Together, like I did a presentation. But the reason I wanted to share this,
oh, look at that. Oh,
yeah, you see me? I was
see
dark
you
at the
over
time. Yes. The reason I wanted to highlight this, because I remember it was AARP. They had asked, I wasn't 50, or I'm still not 50 yet, but they had asked like a financial advisor to come in to do a presentation for women. This show is about money, and we're gonna get to that point now. To do a presentation about women and their finances and how to get yourself situated for retirement, especially once you've hit 50. This is like crunch time. And I remember going there, being so much younger than those who were there, sharing some of the principles, and I was very excited. But your wife was the highlight of the night, because she was the keynote speaker, but also she came out because she got stuck in the elevator for a good hour, I think it was. She had gotten stuck in the elevator.
Oh, wow.
She came out like flying colors, like feeling like nothing. It wasn't anything. And she was apologizing to people. Sorry for being late. Sorry for being late. And my impression of her that day was, wow, what a servant leader. What an awesome person. And she was a city councilor at the time. And I remember going on my Facebook page and said, if this woman ever run for governor, she's gonna have my vote. Well, she didn't run for governor, but she did. She ran for Congress, and I gave her my vote, and I made sure everybody in my family did that, because someone who's passionate about community when you see her. Do you want to say anything about that?
Oh no! Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us your vote and having your family vote for her as well. I share your sentiment. First of all, she's a beautiful looking sister. I'm looking at the picture and I'm smiling from ear to ear. I remember that picture. I remember that day. Not necessarily the picture itself, but I remember the day and the hairstyle and everything. We've been together 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife is one of those people who, one, not just genuinely loves our people and want to see us do well in community and all that, but she fights the good fight. And it's not just talking, it is action. My wife wakes up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning with books and computers in her hands studying. And goes to bed in that same fashion. I'm the one who tries to drag her away from some of that stuff because, you know, she eats it, she lives it constantly. And I always tell her, let's make some time for ourselves so we can be able to fill our own cup up. And that's a constant battle with both of us as we try to serve our community the best way we can. But no, it is an absolute honor. You know, to be that woman's partner and to share in the work of community and fight for our community together collectively from different sides of the aisle in different ways. But to be in a mission with somebody who's your partner. For many of your members who's listening, to have somebody who is your partner in marriage and both of y'all share a mission of community being better and doing better and fighting that fight from different sides is a beautiful gift to come home to. Because you don't have to explain yourself to your partner and you don't have to explain the mission. They get it because they're in it with you. And so it's been an honor and a beautiful gift to share life with somebody who you don't have to explain yourself to.
Yeah, it was definitely an honor for me too, to have had that opportunity with her. You know, again, going back to the reason for my show, people have asked me, why you have this Let's Talk Money with Friends? And I remember just having that conversation with the women at AARP when your wife was there. She shared her experience about, you know, finance and how she learned it a little bit later in life, you know, as an older teenager. And I know you have a teen, right? She's 14, your daughter?
Yes.
So let's talk about the household and financial conversations. Do you have conversation with your teenager about money or younger people in your community about money? And why do you think it's important that we start as early as cradle when it comes to let's talk about money?
Me, similar to my wife, we did not know about money, the power of it, or what to do with it growing up. We both grew up in single parent households where they were robbing Peter to pay Paul and taking money from here to pay this bill and constantly surviving. But we've never known nobody who was thriving, who was financially sound growing up. And so we started to adopt some of those habits, right, of what we seen. And what we knew was probably stacking money and putting some money in the bank and not knowing how to let it grow and all that. So some time ago, part of being married, I had to take a step back and learn more. My wife had to take a step back and learn more. And we had to learn collectively on how to start utilizing money, making it work for us, and how to then start looking at ways to invest, to be able to make sure that we're not just living for today, but we're actually doing something that will set us up for life overall. And it was important for me to bring my daughter in it. One of the things she's 14 now, when she turned 13, I wanted to make sure I got her a credit card so she can have listing credit for 7 years, so I put her on my credit. So now when she's 21, she'll be in a place where she can buy property because she got good credit. As long as she has a job that is consistent, she can actually buy property with that. And so that was so crucial and important for my daughter, so she can start to have credit from the early age. For the 7 years, when she gets 21 years old, she'll have good credit, and she can kind of start taking it from there.
Yeah, going back again to having women in your family, and women being, many of them are head of household. So you think
Yes.
it's particularly important that you have a daughter who is financially literate as
Yes.
early as possible, and some of the challenges that women who are single parents or just single altogether are having because they're not financially literate. And what advice would you have for them to do something today?
So first and foremost, I think that credit is so important, right? When I had to take a step back for me and my family and look at our credit, we didn't have good credit. We didn't even know how to make it good. So I had to sit down and learn through a financial advisor. But for folks who may not have the means to get a financial advisor, I would just talk about starting with making sure that your credit cards, as much as you want to use them to cover up bills or cover up things when you mishap, just make sure that you pay them as soon as you use them. Don't use your credit card unless you have the money to pay them. And I know it's easily said and done, but you have to be, I think it's important to be proactive on how you look at finances and credit, because what I've learned when you start thinking about real estate and other investments, credit is crucial and important. And you can't do anything if your credit's not good. So I would always think about getting a credit card, even if it's like a Macy's card, even if it's a Target card, whatever it is, as soon as you get it and you use it, just pay it.
Yeah.
Walk into a store with a credit card and use it, but have the money to pay for it, so you just pay for it the next day or the day after. So then that will start to slowly but surely build your credit. And those are the type of things that will start to put you on a pathway to helping you think about building wealth.
Yeah, definitely. There are so many disparities that we have to fight against and we have to stand against. And I know that in order for us to collectively empower ourselves, we have to educate ourselves.
Yes.
And I know education is not, it can be very expensive if you're trying to get the university level education, but there are resources available. This show is one of them. But there are resources at local churches, local nonprofit organizations, where every single week information is being shared, is readily available. So we want to encourage those who are watching, especially women.
Yeah, I'll just say for folks who live in the city of Boston, you should go to the City of Boston website. They be having like just in Nubian Square the other day, they was talking about finances and financial literacy courses in the bowling building that they offer. And you find it in the nearest community center near you, and it's free. I think it's so crucial and important for folks to take advantage of those opportunities. And I know when you're hustling and bustling and putting food on the table and running and doing this and taking care of this and taking care of that, it's difficult. I would always suggest that even if you have to bring the little ones with you. Because being educated about your finances and how to best take care of yourself and your family is most important. And it may be one day out the week, and I think that our children are resilient, and we are resilient, that we could take that one day out of the week and take advantage of it.
Yeah, economic empowerment and economic justice is social justice, is racial justice, in my opinion. So it's important that if we're fighting for civil rights and social justice, the best way is to empower ourselves economically so that we can have a voice. Without money, you really cannot have a voice.
Yes.
Without purchasing power. Recently, there's so much that I would like to talk to you about, but I just want to go back again to who you are as a man, as a father, a community leader, and entrepreneur. Again, if you're watching Let's Talk Money with Friends, we would like for you to participate. Let your friends know that we are here and that we want them to be part of this conversation. Please make a comment, share, tag, let them know, and definitely, right?
Yes, like it. Let me say something real quick, Gabrielle. One of the things that I'll say just about us as a community, sometimes we're so much in the fight and that we can't take a step back to then take care of ourselves, right? And so the mission becomes more important, right? And so we get caught up in the mission. I know for years, myself and my wife, we just been in the fight of wanting justice. And sometimes when you're in the fight of wanting justice, you almost neglect you, right? You stop taking care of yourself in a way that makes you safe, makes you fruitful, makes you healthy. And I would just say, take a step back, because the old thing is for real. If you can't, the airplane thing is for real. You got to put a mask over your own face before you can save somebody else. And if I can give any message to anybody on this call, is that it's so crucial and important for us to put the mask over our own face before we start trying to save others, because that's the game right there, right? You put you in this spinning wheel where you're running around trying to do all these things and you're not focusing on you. And guess what? You're the one suffering at the end. So I would always ask people to take a step back, take care of yourself, make yourself and your family the priority. And then when you have spare time, jump in the fight to help others. But it's so crucial. The best thing we can do as a community is take care of our home, because if we're raising beautiful, strong, brilliant, conscious humans, then they will make the contributions to the communities at large.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you noticed online, I've been sharing this book. It talks about Black economics, and it says solutions for economic and community empowerment.
Yes.
It's a powerful book. I picked it up at Nubian Square at the Nubian bookstore.
Yes, that's Frugal's.
Frugal's. Yes, always call it the Nubian. Yes, Frugal's bookstore.
Frugal bookstore, or it's a dear friend of mine. Yeah.
I remember I go pick up my books there. You could go someplace else, but definitely helping Black businesses thrive. It's the way to go.
Listen, that's why I go pick up all my books. It's so important. That's how we can give back, right?
Yeah.
We make our dollars circulate in our own community. We be deliberate, even if it's out of reach, even if we live in Randolph and one lives in Nubian Square. We take a ride for everything else. We can take that ride to go support Black businesses. It's important. It makes our money circulate.
Yeah. And one more thing about this, I know you just mentioned it's very important to take care of your family. Self-care and taking care of your individual family is important. But what I love most about this book is it talks about collective power, how important it is to come out and be part of the community. Because many times I've experienced it, and you're gonna share a little bit about your story. Without the collective power of community leaders and community organizations standing behind you, sometimes you can rack your brain trying to find solutions, and you'll never find a solution when the solution is next door with your neighbor, with the community organization that's been working for years, and you haven't taken part of that work. So yeah, so let me just say, to move on, I know that as I was online, of course, doing some research, and I noticed an article. And when I was reading the article, and you and your wife were quoted in the article, and it was about you. And when I read this article, I was like, oh, really? And then I realized that, yes, the passion that you have is because you are one of the most impacted. And I think it was your wife who once said, and I think that's what the people who told me about that quote, they said the people most impacted must lead. The ones most impacted must lead. So tell me about, like, why have you been so passionate, for those who don't know, about giving back to community, especially when it comes to your experience with the legal system?
And the quote that my wife used that we love so much is, the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policy making. And it really is the fact that we can't have other folks coming in talking about they know best on how to change conditions for us. We have to be the ones at the table driving that, because who knows it best other than us? We experience it day to day. We get up and we live it day to day. And so we should be at the policy table. We should be in the conversation talking about the best ways to inform and support the work that we're doing. Myself, so early on in my life, like most young men in Boston, like a lot of young men in Boston, I won't say most, like a lot of young men in Boston in the inner city, I was incarcerated at 11, 12 years old. I was gang involved and in the streets, and that was a lifestyle that I learned without growing up in a single parent household, and been a part of some of the conditions that our neighborhood represented, not having a positive male figure. And so I fell into the trap, like many of our young men that we see today, being gang involved and being in the streets and thinking that that was the life that we wanted to lead. And like many young men, I was searching. I was searching for identity. I was searching for something to belong to. And as much as my mother loved me and wanted me to do something different, I fell into the trap that we see in our neighborhoods daily. And it became a lifestyle for me. And when you start living a negative lifestyle as a lifestyle, you come up with the consequences. And so I was incarcerated very young, and that became my world, in and out of the justice system, until I did a stint in 10 years in prison. And for drug trafficking, did I start to do something different. And I'll tell you the things that helped change my life and my condition. It was three things. One was, while I was in the institution inside Norfolk, I was walking with young people and talking to them that were in Department of Youth Services. They used to come up to the prison and ask and talk about family and gangs and peer pressure and alternatives to violence. And I used to talk to them about it. And at the break time, the young people had a chance to kind of talk to whoever they wanted to while they was eating cookies and drinking. And when I looked up, all the young people were around me. And so it made me start to think about, what is it in me that makes people flock to me? What is it in me that makes people want to respond and feel connected to me? And then I started to make some adjustments in my own life. I started to take a look. The other piece was education. I started going to college inside the institution, going to correspondence courses and getting great grades, and started to realize that I was more than just my physical attributes. It was a brain behind that could actually achieve and do well in the educational system. And then the third thing was that I had to do some healing. Right? As a man, when we grow up and we go through things and feeling abandoned and not having a dad in the home, I had to do some healing within me to make sure that I forgave him. And then I forgave me for some of the things that I experienced. And going through those three processes started me in making a transition.
Yeah.
And doing some turnaround things to help understand my worth. That's one. And two, started making some decisions that would be better in my life versus bringing deficits to it.
Yeah. Before we go to the work that you've been doing in the past and now, I just want to go back to something that I noticed online as well, that you are a man of faith. And I know that you mentioned that your mom, on this show, we say faith matters. So can you tell us a little bit how your faith, to me, that's very important. Education, you mentioned, very important. We talk about education matters, community matters, you matter, but faith. Can you express some of the sentiments on how your praying mother, recently somebody sent me, how they send the chain emails, and it was how my mother prayed and how that prayer saved my life. Did her prayer save your life as well?
Oh, no. Her prayer absolutely saved my life. I was raised in the church, right? And so I deviated from my rearing and how I was raised. But from the beginning of time, my grandmother and my mother raised us in the church. We sung in the choir, me and my siblings. And that's been my foundation my whole life. Now, there was moments and times where I deviated from the foundation of which I was reared, but God remained a constant in my life. I try to stay away from being super religious, but I'm a strong believer in God, and God has been my foundation since the beginning. I'm a praying man. My family prays. We pray together every day. When I'm with my wife or against my wife, we start our morning off with a prayer collectively. I send her a one page of something that I read in the Bible in quotes, and we have a discussion about it every morning. That's our foundation. Without constant prayer, without the belief in God and God being our foundation, our marriage couldn't exist as strong as it does, and it would be ready to crumble. And I think that everything we stand on would be ready to crumble if we didn't have our strong beliefs in God and God being our foundation.
Yeah, definitely. You had mentioned earlier that the young men inside of the prison were coming towards you. And I know that when you have a purpose over your life, it doesn't matter what valley and mount, the valleys that you're going through, that purpose will come to pass. So I know you studied sociology.
Yeah.
When I first graduated from high school, this was going to be my major. But of course, the naysayers said to me, go into business, you need to make money. So, but sociology has always, because sociology is all about people and community and learning about the family. So not only having a purpose, but that education, how has that helped you with the work that you did in the public sector?
I think that I've always had a way with loving us, right? And loving people. I didn't always have the verbiage, right? And one thing about education, it does really well is it helps you with the verbiage. It helps you articulate yourself and speak the kind of verbiage that you mean. My major started off as psychology because I was constantly wondering about the brain, right? And how it operates and functions. And then slowly but surely going in, I started to realize that it was never about the brain itself. It was the circumstances that made people function and operate the way that they do. And that had everything to do with sociology and the people around and the circumstances in which people are in. And so that's piqued my interest. I was intrigued and I went down that rabbit hole. And before I knew it, I took like 12, 13 sociology courses, and that became my focus. But I'll tell you, the most important piece about sociology was just the way my mother, again, it goes back to my foundation about my mother's love for me and love for people, and me seeing that kind of help me think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be connected to people and how my natural love came for people. But it was because my mother and how she raised us and what I saw her show an example of being. And that kind of stewarded me along. And what school did is that it put some structure and some bones to it, right? Yeah. And that's what education does. It takes who you are and it puts some structure and some bones, and it helps you figure out a pathway. But your foundation of who you are comes everything about how you was reared in your foundation in God and love. And then what education does, it takes that and puts bones to it to help you figure out a pathway.
Yeah, definitely a pathway to serve people. And I do believe that this work here is all about service, and the work that you've done all about service. So we have My Brother's Keeper. You were instrumental in Boston with that.
Yes.
Director of Public Safety, Boston. Yeah. And also we want to talk mainly about the Boston First Office of Returning Citizens.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about those things?
So it's interesting. My wife, I used to work for the Boston Foundation, and I used to run a program called Street Safe Boston. I was part of the leadership there. For anybody who's wondering what it is, it's a gang intervention and prevention program. It's done really, it was a great program that I ran for over 5 years. It has a documentary right now on cable called This Is Not Normal. It talks about the gang issues in Boston and the work that was being done to mitigate and minimize some of the violence in our city. And then I kind of said, let me figure out the next phase of what I wanted to do. And I took my expertise and started doing some consulting and helping other cities figure out public safety as a whole and looking at public safety through an opportunity-driven lens, not necessarily through incarceration or police and fire, but to look at it through opportunities. How do we take our most vulnerable young people and give them real opportunities of success so that we can minimize violence by taking them out of poverty? And so I helped other cities do that, and the mayor reached out to me and asked me to be involved in his administration, Mayor Walsh. I declined a few times because I did not think I would like government. And when I decided to accept, I got involved in the public safety realm. And then I jumped in to take over My Brother's Keeper. And our city was doing great work, helping young Black and brown boys across our city, and still doing that. And right now, the legacy of My Brother's Keeper is becoming a man. It's in 20, 30 different public schools throughout our city, and helping young Black and brown boys with their social and emotional well-being. And counselors are in the school, Black and brown men, counseling young Black and brown boys. And we brought Becoming a Man in the city of Boston. So that is part of the legacy of My Brother's Keeper. But it was great. We done wonderful things. And under the President Obama, I was going around different cities throughout the country and helping those cities develop programming that would support younger Black and brown boys do really well from a social emotional well-being place. But the whole mindset behind any success that we've been able to have, it was really about taking it out of government and building a team and community, because I never wanted to act like I was the one doing this stuff. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. There were many brothers doing My Brother's Keeper way before Conan came along or before our former President Barack Obama uttered those words. So I wanted to make sure that I was inclusive of bringing those voices collectively together and work with community to develop programming. And that's how we found our success. So anytime you see MBK, My Brother's Keeper, it would be Conan, but it would also be many others. And they would be involved and on the front lines of this work. And that was important for me.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's collective power. You need everybody involved. So going back again to my last question, I know earlier today we had a conversation with a lady. I wanted to introduce you to, Christina Hollenbach. I wanted to introduce you because she's doing a lot of work with returning citizens.
Yes.
Making sure that they have proper housing when they return. So can you, for those who are not familiar with the terminology, returning citizen, can you please share that? And also one piggyback question, why do you think housing should be at the forefront of the work that is being done to help out returning citizens?
So I was a part of the Walsh administration, and we created the first office of returning citizens, and that's for men and women coming home from incarceration. We wanted to put returning citizens as a positive name on it because, you know, when you start calling people ex-cons and inmates and all those things, that makes a recognition of that's who they are. And your crime is what you did. That's not who you are, right? And it's a separate thing, right? It's important to make sure that people are not calling folks negative things and basing it on who they are versus what they did. And everybody has made mistakes in their life. And I want to just acknowledge that. That's why we came up with the name Returning Citizens. And so we created this office, the first in the city of Boston history, to focus on folks coming home from incarceration. But again, it goes back to the collective. I could not build this office by myself. It was important outside of the administration that we bring in formerly incarcerated people to tell us what this office should look like. And so we brought 20 to 30 people in, men and women that were formerly incarcerated, and they helped develop this office. And so I want to give them their flowers and thank them for the work that they've done and recognize that they contributed to making this office so. I think that housing is a prerequisite because I don't think that you can do anything, work, education, mental health. You can't settle yourself if you don't have a safe place to rest your head. And so housing is a prerequisite to reentry because you cannot do the other things that can help you get on a pathway to success if you don't have a safe place to rest your neck. And when I came home from incarceration over 15 years ago, the number one thing that I did have was a safe place to go to sleep, a safe place to rest, relax, and start to think about a pathway to find different things that I wanted to do to contribute to community. And that's crucial for anyone. You cannot be productive in moving the needle within your own self and moving the needle for anyone else if you don't find a place that is safe for you to sleep, think, and think about your next move. And so I think that housing is a prerequisite to reentry.
Yeah, not only reentry, going back again to something, what you just said, it's for everyone.
It's for
And I
everyone.
believe strongly that housing is a human right. Everybody should have affordable, habitable home to live, because you cannot function completely, wholeheartedly as an individual if you're struggling and you don't have a place that's safe
No,
to
no, I
live.
agree.
And many of the challenges in terms of the crimes that we are experiencing in the inner cities are due to children not having homes that are safe and habitable for them to live in. So with that being said, I know you are in Boston, and Michelle Hu, the mayor, just proposed legislation for rent control. But for those of us who are who are housing advocate, because I know your late mother-in-law was a community organizer, and her focus was in housing. Do
Yeah.
you think today she would say Boston has a housing crisis and rent control would be the solution, or would she be thinking about another solution if she were here?
I would not want to speak for my
Well,
mother-in-law.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do that because
yeah,
that was a grown woman that I had
right,
experience. She was a tenants rights activist,
correct.
and she had ideas on ways to fix it.
Correct.
That I think that as you continue to grow, you get to see more creative ways. But Boston has a housing crisis. I think that two things need to happen. One, and I'm a small landlord. I think that one, you have to build more housing. And so, because what's happened is that people coming into the city and there's not enough housing. So the amount of housing that we have, landlords are able to strike up the rent and do all that because the housing becomes a hot commodity, right? And so you want to build more houses so it can take care of the population that we have. That's one. And two, I like the way what the mayor's thinking. It's become out of control, and you need to put some level of a cap on it. But I want to kind of make clear to folks what rent control is. What rent control is, if you put rent control in place right now, it isn't like it's going to reduce what the rent is. What it is that it keeps the rent where it's at right now, because nobody can tell you to take the rent down. What they say is we're going to freeze it at where it's at now. So I just kind of want to give folks some context to what rent control means, is that rent control means you can't go up to more than what you have right now, but it stays at the place that it's at now. And that's just giving folks some context.
Yeah, actually, Mayor who is offering inflation plus actually up to 10%, so including inflation. So someone can raise the rent annually by up to 10%. The cap is 10%. But housing advocates, organizations that I'm very close to, like City Life, we saying like 10% is a little too high, because housing is already too expensive right now. And production, you mentioned, we need to build more housing. It's great, but at the end of the day, families, especially Black and brown families, they're not at a position to pay those high rents, and they're being disproportionately displaced, gentrified out of Boston. So we're talking about economic power within the community. And you mentioned that people should stay in their communities. How can you do that if over at Fairlawn in Mattapan, an area in Boston, a one bedroom is going for $1,800 today?
Yeah, no, I think that this is definitely a difficult time to maintain, but I like the idea of having that discussion. The great thing about Mayor Wu is that she's open to that discussion, and she's looking to learn with community. And so I think that as housing advocates start to think, I would ask them to continue that conversation with the mayor, because there's different programs that will support some of the needs, and that needs to be maximized. The thing about resources that exist in our city is that it's not that we don't have them, it's that people don't know about them. Correct. And so what we got to do is figure out ways to get the message across to people about what does exist and what doesn't, and really push to have those discussions with our elected officials to meet that, to get to that compromise. Because if they're only hearing from some folks and not others, then they're going along with what those folks may think and what they may say. So it's important for them to hear about housing and many other issues from the collective, so we can meet that happy medium.
Yeah, and I was just thinking it's not part of my questions, but yesterday I was talking to someone and they said typically when you are qualifying for a mortgage, they want to go within a debt to income of no more than 30%, right? So
Yeah.
30% of your income should be what they use to qualify for the loan. And I know for those who are on Section 8, subsidized housing, that's very similar, 30%. But your average person who's paying market rate is paying 80%, 90%.
Yeah.
So do you think, I know last year, a couple of years ago, I went to a training, it was a gentleman who came from Austria. And in Austria, of all places, they have social housing where everyone pay 30% of their income towards rent. So do you think that's what we need, even more so than even rent control? You don't have to answer if you don't have the answer for that, but I think we need it. Again, going back again to housing being such an important part of you being able to thrive and do well as a person, not only for yourself, but for your community. How can we not see that as a primary obligation to make sure that everybody has affordable and habitable home to live?
First and foremost, I think that one, my value is that I think that everybody needs comfortable and housing for them to live, exist, and find success so they can take care of themselves and build wealth and build generational wealth for their families. So that's my value.
Correct.
Now, how we get there, it's going to some tops and some turns and things like that. I think that New Zealand, I would have to look at it to learn more. I wouldn't speak on their mission without knowing it, but what I will say is that I think it's crucial. So Mayor Wu just put out a land trust because there's different housing in Boston right now where she put it up there, all these different lots for people to build housing, but they wasn't going to sell them for inflation prizes. We got to make sure that they sell them so folks who have low income can buy them and can afford them and move into them. And then they can't sell them for over a certain amount. So there's housing programs out there that exist that allows people to get on a pathway to not just moving into an apartment, but actually buying a home. We just got to figure out where those resources and make sure that it gets out there to the people.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar, they did restricted homes where
Yes.
there's a cap on when you can sell, and if you sell, how much you can sell it for.
How much you can sell it for.
Yeah.
But it also, on the flip end of that, it allows you to entry into buying a home, right? Because they're making sure that they can't sell them over a certain amount. So it makes you and me or you and someone else able to afford it without having to break yourself or go into your pockets where you're broke after purchasing that home. You get to buy it for a reasonable price, move your family in, and then your mortgage is low as a result because the house is not bought for so much.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many different opportunities. That's why, again, going back to the purpose of this show, and not only to have someone like you being highlighted so that the folks will know that in life you go through the valley, you go to the peak in the valley and things will happen, but your purpose, you should always seek to find your purpose so that you can be of an asset to not only your family, but also to your community. I do this show. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as Black people and as brown people, we belong everywhere. Correct. We really do. I want to say that to us, man, because we're God's people, and we should never play ourselves small. We should know that any room that we walk in, we belong. We should absolutely know it and understand it and know that the opportunities out there that we need to go get, right? And if there's not, and we need to be deliberate on taking care of each other. So if I know something, I got to be able to tell Gabrielle, and if she knows something, she got to be able to tell me, so forth and so on. We have to be that deliberate and making sure that we all have a piece of this pie and that we all exist in a city where we can thrive and find success, whether it be through business or through high employment. And it isn't just working in the field, but actually being executives as well.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely the reason for this show, again, my last comment here is that for those who are young and those who are not so young, who are looking at life and saying like, you know what, can I have a second chance? I wanted you to be here so that they know that, yes, you can have a second chance just because your past shouldn't predict your future. So definitely What would you like to say lastly to someone, a young person particularly, who's watching, who's probably 11, 13, now in the future, and they're saying like, you know what, am I ever gonna materialize? Am I ever gonna become somebody? Struggling to be part of society. What would you say to them? What hope would you share with them?
I would just say, it's important to say that you belong. You belong to grow up and grow old and find success in the community in which you come from. You deserve to do whatever you want and get out here and make it. And what I would also say is that, for me, I was an ordinary person who had extraordinary support. I made mistakes in my life, but that wasn't who I was. And so through the grace of God, I've been able to bounce back and make positive decisions to not only affect me and my family, but to affect the community at large. I would also say to a young person, you may go through some things, but don't make those things your character. Make those things those mistakes. And then make those necessary bounce back. We are resilient people. We are strong people. And we are deserving people. So don't listen to the naysayers or what the news try to tell you about who you are. Go up, come out here, grow up, do what you got to do. Go to school, handle your business, and go get it out here. There's a whole world out here. Don't get stuck in Boston and believe in what's happening in Boston is a dictatorship on your life. There's a big world out there, and go get it.
Yeah, go get it. Thank you so much, Mr. Harris, for being on the show. Definitely, we're all about community. We're all about giving back, because I do believe to whom much is given, much is required.
Absolutely.
Like I've been given a lot in my lifetime, and you've been given a lot. Many opportunities, and that's why we are here tonight. We wanted this show to empower you, to encourage you, so that you could go and do likewise, especially those who are young. Please share this show with your friends, family, especially young people in your life, those who are struggling to become men or women. It's very important that you let them know that they are examples, they are mentors, they are those who are willing. I know I've mentored so many young people, and I'm willing to continue to do it because I know they are the future, and it's my responsibility to pour into their lives, because so many have poured into my life, and the same can be said for you too. So thank you again for the show. I'm very excited. I hope like everybody who's watching can, got something out of it.
Gabrielle, thank you very much for having me. And thank you for putting this podcast together. Thank you for putting this show together. I like that sign in the back that says blessed, because sister, you are blessed. Continue to use your gifts for good and continue to be a blessing to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching. Tune in next week for another great episode of Let's Talk Money with Friends. Have a blessed night, everybody.
Have a blessed night, everyone.